Are you ready? Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot.
Is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
Home run. Good.
This is as good as it gets.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson. Coming up on this program, we are pleased to be joined by Canadian wheelchair racer and Paralympic medalist Austin Smeenk, who will stop by and talk about his successful national and international career. With the success of the Commonwealth Games, we're going to discuss the fact that this event is a joint event between para and Olympic sports, if you will, and whether or not this is a stepping stone for maybe eventually putting events like this together. Plus, we're going to chat a little bit about anxiety versus pressure and how those two things intersect. I'm joined by Claire and Josh. Here come your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Canada wraps up its Commonwealth Games with a total of 62 medals, 19 gold, 20 silver, and 23 bronze. If we break that down a little bit further, para-athletes came home with 10 total medals, with 1 being gold, 3 being silver, and 6 being bronze. Congratulations to all the athletes.
The Toronto Raptors are heading to Quebec City and Vancouver during their preseason games. October 3rd versus the Heat at Videotron Center in Quebec City, and October 10th versus the Clippers at Rogers Arena. Tune into the upcoming Toronto Raptors season as they push for another playoff appearance.
World Bocce mourns the passing of founding president David Hadfield, who sadly passed away at the age of 73. David had a passion for sports and was the first person who started World Bocce. At the beginning, it was referred to as BizFed. So his contributions were second to none, and his passing was greatly sad to learn in the community. We send our condolences to the family and the community and all of those that knew him. Those are your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this bowl game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR.
Strike!
Pitch and a strike. Hey, gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. Now that's a winning combination.
We are so excited to be joined by our next guest, and that is Austin Smeenk, who is a wheelchair racer and a Paralympic medalist. He is here today to talk about his wonderful national and international career. Austin, thanks so much for joining us and doing this again. It's been a while since we've had you on, so nice to have you back.
It's an absolute pleasure to be back. It's been a lot of fun since we've spoken last, so I can't wait to get caught up on everything that's gone on.
Austin, you have been involved in track for some time now. Can you share what you have seen over the years, just in the evolution of parasport as a whole?
Absolutely. I think that, so just to give some of the listeners a background, I began parasport in the early 2000s, and at the time it was a lot of fun and it was completely recreational for me. But at a certain point, it became a professional undertaking, and, we were looking at how can we get better in the racing chair with the equipment that we're using, but also how can we get better in the racing chair with our body's physiology. And a certain sort of professionalization came about it. And, as I was progressing from a development to a high performance lifestyle and and attitude towards my sport, we had a new head coach come in, Carla Nichols, and she pretty well gave us the confidence in ourselves and her backing of saying, you know, what you guys need to feel supported is going to be what I support. And that translated into a massive growth stage. And through that, I went from essentially the playground to podium and had an enormous amount of fun representing the country and seeing the world and seeing, you know, what ceiling I had in the world of my athletic abilities and the sport that I chose.
Now, in light of everything that has progressed since you started, Austin, do you still see room for growth in parasport?
I certainly do. Like, I think that for growth in parasport to continue flourishing, you know, we need to continue doing what we're doing. And the things that I've seen in my time through the sport is that we have never had a worse Paralympics in terms of viewership. It's always been better than last time. And for the people that think, you know, parasport's lagging behind, you know, they are correct, but what's happening is it's continuously been growing, and we're at the point where this movement is, you know, on a forward trajectory, and everything that I'm seeing is servicing the further development of parasport. So I'm pretty proud when it comes to being an active representative, and I'm also pretty excited about the future of parasport because we are doing such a good job to develop it in this country.
You recently, at the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games, reached the pinnacle of your sport, winning a gold medal and a bronze medal. Can you share what those each individual experiences were like, both winning the gold and the bronze, and what was different between the two?
Absolutely. So this is such fun for me because I've gone through sport essentially riding on talent for many years. And there came a point in my career where I felt the support from our national team staff, and I also felt that a time has come where I needed to see what my hypothetical ceiling was. So I moved from my hometown of Oakville, Ontario to Victoria, BC, and in advance of the Olympics and the qualifying round of the Olympics, which for us is our World Championships that is a year in advance. And I got there in 2022, preparing for 2023, stepped on the podium for the first time in my career. And it was in large due to the shift in mentality and shift in environment that supported me to do all of the things that were upcoming right. So the next decision was going to make me closer to, the podium. And if I didn't know the answer to that question, it did not get my energy. And then after medaling in 2023 at World Championships, I somewhat came into this realization that, why not me? I can be the best athlete in the world if I put everything into it. So I doubled down and continued to ignore distractions. I put every piece of energy I had, whether or not it was mental or physical energy, into what's going to make me go in a circle a little bit faster. And then, we get to the Paralympics and it's a matter of stay healthy. And I'd gone to multiple world championships and at least one Paralympic before in an unhealthy state where you set yourself up to be so prepared, to what the standards of what I thought at the time anyway. And then you end up getting sick. So I isolated myself. I did, again, the next action was correct. And when I finally crossed the finish line in the first race's final, which was the 100 meter, I had won my first Paralympic medal, which was the bronze. And I think the bronze might actually mean more to me than the gold medal does, because I had finally cracked the barrier on being the best in the world at a specific time and that takes so much. Like, it's easy to win races in the middle of the season, but when everybody's standing in front of a drawing board thinking about, how can I win? You have 8 people that are incredibly talented that are going to run the same race, maybe a little bit different. And the moment of crossing the finish line and realizing that I had a bronze medal, or let alone a Paralympic medal, meant that, everything that I had done correctly, and it came to fruition. And then, that was such a moment of elation, winning a bronze medal at the Paralympics for the first time, winning a medal at the Paralympics for the first time, that I had known through the evolution of my sports psychology that we are still at a championship, and you need to not get too high and not get too low. So when it's time for your next race, you're as charged as you can possibly be. So I quite literally agreed with my coach and sports psychologist that we were going to celebrate that medal for a few hours, maybe 4 hours. And then it was dinner time, and that medal is going underneath the bed in its box, and we're getting ready for the 800 meter. And then when I did the 800 meter, we had 15 to 20 plans for what to do next in any scenario. So we had sat down with a notebook, and, it's a notebook that I've used in presentations on preparation before. But we literally sat down and we showed out, this is a picture of a track. We labeled it off 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we going to do every 100 meters of this 400 meter track? And through that, we strategized situations that will lead to me being favorable to win. And yeah, crossing the finish line after the 8 was just like a holy smokes moment where I'm like, again, everything that I had possibly thought about was, T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, and I was all of a sudden crossing the finish line as a Paralympic champion.
Now, in addition to being a multi-medalist, you've also been a world record holder in your 400 and 800, even though they were subsequently broken. What's that like to know that you are the fastest person to do that event?
It's fantastic. It was planned, and it was highly intentional. So I told my coach in April of 2024, I think, based on everything that I feel about my body, I think we're going to go to Switzerland next month, and I want to break the world record. And he said, we should loop the sports psych into this, because I'm not sure that going to the Paralympics as the defending world record holder is necessarily our best tactic, because we could go there and surprise people, and people could race differently if they know or if they think you're not holding serious firepower. So then he came back to me and said, you know what, I thought about this overnight, and I woke up and I said, yeah, I thought that's stupid as well. And I think we should go to the championship or the Paralympics as the world record holder. And I think I'm capable of doing it right now. So even better than that, we got to say, well, hey, setting a world record provides an opportunity for us to practice staying calm in a high excitement state. So when I went to Switzerland and eventually did race the 400 meter for the first time and I broke the world record, which was like wild. I literally thought, I can go do this. And then I went and did it. And then we had an opportunity for me to keep my head down and not get too excited, not get too high, not get too low, because again, I knew there was more races to do in that series. And it was such a blast. And then so I'll just give the listeners and everyone else that doesn't know some context. The format was we raced the 400 semifinal, and I showed up and I broke the world record. And then we race the final the next day, and I show up and I break the world record. And then 3 days later, we go to Switzerland, we go from Switzerland to Paris, and it's a 400 meters straight final, just one shot. So I went and I did that race, and I had a little tweak I wanted to make in my strategy, which was where in the 400 meter, where in the one lap of the track do I want to hit peak velocity? So I backed it up another little bit. I thought, okay, I broke the world record hitting peak speed with 120 meters to go. Then I was like, let's do it we're going to hit peak speed at 150 meters to go. And then I said, okay, we're in Paris now. I've just broken the world record twice. I'm going to try and go into the 200 meter mark at peak speed. And what you're doing is you're building confidence in your ability to maintain that speed for a longer period of time or a longer duration, longer distance. And when I did it the third time, it was like, holy smokes again. And then I quite literally lied on the ground and I did what I see our Olympic counterparts do in the high jump event, which is between jumps, they literally lie on the floor, put their sunglasses on, put their hat over their eyes, and they pretend they're sleeping for like a little bit of time. So I laid on the ground and, I had some teammates there that were trying to make the national team that year and their results on their next event depended on it. And I was like, yeah, I just did the world record for the third time in a week and I'm going to try and teach a master class on emotional regulation. So then, I took my hat off my eyes and put my racing shirt back on, went onto the track, and I broke the 800 meter world record the same afternoon that I broke the 400 meter world record for the third time. And again, it's like, it was just a stepping stone in how to carry yourself at the Paralympics and using every opportunity as one, or using every race as an opportunity to practice at least one thing that will ultimately set you up for success in the Paralympics on the world's biggest stage.
And when someone did end up breaking those world records, is that a disappointment for you, or is that like, hey, good for you, you really worked your tail off?
Yeah, no, I think so. I currently still hold the 800 meter world record. The 400 meter world record went down at World Championships in New Delhi to my probably most best apex competitor, which is from Thailand. His name is Rawatana. And he did a fantastic race at World Championships. In the semifinal of the 400, he broke my world record. And, hats off to him. Like, I know what it took to do that. And if he's able to do that, then I honestly have to admire the work ethic. Like, it's no joke to get to that level.
You are continuing to compete and succeed at the highest level. And yet again, you had a very successful 2026 Canadian Nationals, leading to both gold in the 100 meter and 800 meter. What contributes to the success of Nationals specifically?
The success at Nationals specifically, I need to be quite honest, is that, in the world of para sport, track and field, it's a small number of people that have the same disability as you that also decided to do the sport you're interested in, and then also decided to try their best and invest a wild amount of resources into. So when I consider my domestic competition, albeit I know them well and they're fantastic humans, and if you're listening, I love you very much and think what you're doing is sick, there is not a very deep pool in Canada of world-class wheelchair racers that compete in the same division that I do. So ultimately, for me to find success at our national championships, it's albeit not the most difficult thing. But what I will say in segue or in sequence of that is we do not scale our gold medals and our top position finishes at nationals just under that umbrella. So we have a system in Canada that allows two people with different disabilities to race against each other for the same gold medal, which means when I finish a race and I go 90% of the world record, or let's say even 80% of the world record, somebody else who's also a wheelchair racer who competes in a different division from me is competing for the same prize. And they're doing it on a percentage of their world record time. And it's built into a large calculator that takes way more into consideration than just that one data point. But it is exciting to be one of the highest rated people, because winning at nationals means that I'm better at what I do. Winning at nationals means that I'm better at what I do than somebody else is at what they do. And it is often first across the finish line, but sometimes I'll finish second by a margin and my points are still higher because I am better relative my division than they are to their division on an annual basis.
That makes sense. Given that we are entering August now and part of the season at least is over, what's next on your competition schedule? Do you have other events this season, or are you building towards the off season now?
So I finished my racing season at the end of June, which is extraordinarily early for us. We typically have a championship sometime in the fall, and this is one of the years where we don't have a world championships, but we have a Commonwealth Games. And Commonwealth Games, for those who know, doesn't have every event available for every sport. So for me, as a T34 wheelchair racer, I did not have the opportunity to race at the Commonwealth Games. And that means that I finished my season very early, and I pretty well have had an amazingly fun time in July and the beginning of August now with an unstructured off season, which to me and to the listeners means I am essentially able to show up at the gym and pick my own adventure. I'm not on a formal training plan, and the coaches have said this is your last breath of fresh air before we put our heads down and go hard from September until September 2 years from now at the Paralympic Games in LA. So I'm very much so am laying the groundwork and the foundation for the stuff that's to come, but I could also decide I don't feel like going to the gym today and wake up and sleep and then go back to bed and sleep until 1 o'clock in the afternoon if I want.
What does an ideal Austin Smeenk choose your own adventure in the gym look like?
Well, I have so much fun. I've literally been doing like 100 reps of bench press, 100 reps of prone row, which is pretty much face down, pulling a bar towards your chest. And then a whole bunch of curls, a whole bunch of shoulder flies, a whole bunch of tricep extension. It's really just a lot of fun because in the world of high performance wheelchair racing, getting ready for a championship, you're spending so much time in the training week in the racing chair. And then all of a sudden I don't have to get in the racing chair and I can decide I want to go to the gym 4 days a week, eat like 5,000 calories a day and just bulk. Because ultimately, if I can show up stronger than I've ever been, even if I'm above weight, it's still a fun starting point to be like, yeah, let's see what happens when I operate at 65 kilos. And yes, it's more mass to move around the track, but, you know, my body and the racing chair, if I'm making more power, what does that look like despite the increase in body weight? So it's a really fun testing point for me right now. And I'm honestly just like been having a ton of fun going to the gym, going for bike rides, jumping in the pool, and really somewhat ignoring the racing chair because, you know, come September, I'm going to be in the racing chair 6 days a week and stuff looks different.
It's been so much fun listening to you talk for the last 22 plus minutes. I mean, we had you on this program 6 years ago, and I have to tell you, it's night and day listening to you speak and talk quite openly about how things are going for you. So we greatly appreciate the time, and I just enjoy the rest of August because it'll go by faster than you think, and then September will be there and you'll be back to regimented training. But it's been a pleasure having you on board, and we look forward to having you on again down the line.
Thank you very much. It's absolutely been a pleasure to chat with you guys, and I love sharing the story. It's so fun.
Awesome. You know, it's sometimes when you bring athletes on, you kind of know where it's going to go, and sometimes you kind of don't. There was a world where I don't remember who our third counterpart was with us that day, but Josh and I for sure interviewed Austin about 6-7 years ago, and it was a lot of one-word answers. It was a lot of nerves. It was a lot of just wasn't sure. And this was the complete opposite of that. This was a guy who you could see was excited, was prepared, was ready to do this. And I really, really, really appreciated that interview. Just to see the growth of somebody from, 6 to 7 years ago is incredible. And so we appreciate, Austin and what he just gave us for the last 20 minutes or so. Was a really great interview, and I really appreciated that. We're going to get into some of the stuff that he chatted about a bit later on in this block, if you will. But I want to start here. I want to start with the fact that, as we mentioned in our headlines earlier in the show, Canada had success at the Commonwealth Games, which led me to think, because it's a combined event with able-bodied and para-athletes, and I know there was less para-athletes, do we ever think that this is a model of combining events? And I know the argument of, well, we have to change everything from basically inaccessible to accessible, but you kind of don't have to do that anymore, or shouldn't have to do that anymore, because we're in 2026 and things should be mainly accessible in order to do that. Is it, guys, just purely the size of the event and number of athletes which makes it easier to do this, or is there an eventual world where you could see these competitions be combined in some form? Let's start with Claire on this one.
You're definitely seeing a rise in more events being collaborated in that way, of having your para events and your able-bodied events going on. I recently saw that CBC Gem will be covering an equestrian event that will also be combined next week. And it's exciting to see. I personally enjoy it. I think it is a win-win for both sides. You get a lot more eyes on parasport in general. And I think that our biggest kind of game changer that we can really use as a tool to push the Paralympic movement at a faster and bigger rate is having the allyship and the education of our able-bodied counterparts. It's those people that have the platforms and the voices and the spaces to be able to speak up and advocate for more parasport and more coverage, excuse me, of parasport. Like I said, it's a win-win, and I really enjoy it. The Commonwealth Games was a beautiful example of how that can turn into a really successful event.
I love the concept of integrated events. One of the favorite events that I go to each year, unless it's super prohibitively expensive, is our athletics national championship that Austin spoke about. I love the fact that it is combined, and I can be sitting there finishing my shot put event, let's say, and then I can wander over to the hammer cage and watch Ethan Katzberg throw his hammer 80 meters. It's absolutely crazy, but I love it. My concern with a fully integrated event like Commonwealth is what Austin also mentioned in the interview. There were limited numbers of para-athletes. I'm fine with a combined Paralympics, Olympics, World Championships, what have you, but not at the expense of events. And the problem that I can see, because let's be honest, I've lived it, is that the para gets pushed aside. They get scheduled first thing in the morning or last thing at night or moved around during the event because, well, we have to accommodate for this person who throws discus and hammer and they have to be available for each event and what have you. Or, as Austin said about Commonwealth, only certain classes got to go and compete. That doesn't develop the sport in that instance. So kudos for making it an integrated event. Keep doing that, but expand it. Make it available to all classes, or at least to all classes with a large enough group. And Austin's event, T34, there should be plenty of T34s in the world to be able to hold those track events, at least.
You know, I promise I listened to 100% of our conversations that we have had on the program. Can I remember all 100 and all many that we've had? No, but I do listen. And the thing that didn't dawn on me until you just said it was that whole, like, yeah, but then we get pushed aside if we were to combine it. And you don't want to do that at a Paralympic Games. You don't want to have athletes get pushed aside and say, well, we have to accommodate for Ethan Katzberg because it's Ethan Katzberg. We have to accommodate for Damian Warner because it's Damian Warner. We have to accommodate for Sidney Crosby because it's Sidney Crosby. The list goes on and on. You don't want to do that. And by having the Paralympics on its own, it will have its own hierarchy of like, this is a top athlete. This one should go. This game should be marquee. I do agree, and we've had this conversation before. It just never really clicked to me of like, yeah, it seems kind of fun to combine it, but I'm not so sure it's a good idea now, Claire, listening to Josh and Austin kind of explain how national championships kind of runs.
For sure. And me personally, when we have conversations around combined events, the Paralympics and Olympics is not one that comes to mind for me. I think that the Paralympics should go first and would make it a lot easier for accessibility and stuff like that. If we already have those accessible pieces put in place, nothing needs to be changed. Also, we've had the conversation of the Winter Paralympics specifically, of needing recently a different schedule date. It needs to be moved. So that is an event that I don't consider when we have the conversation of combining events. I think that there are events out there that do it really well. But I think moving forward, if we were going to combine events like Commonwealth Games and it should be in addition to. Why not add an extra event to the schedule to be able to have both groups of athletes together? I don't want to see current events and, like you guys just talked about, being affected by more combination. But when that happens, you're right. There are some people that get left out. And I think someone like Austin and that racing class is something that was a huge miss out of Commonwealth Games specifically. That's just a group of athletes that people will continue to keep tuning in to watch.
And it's
absolutely. And I would say to you as well, if we start combining, say, the Paralympics and Olympics, how many people are going to know, or how many people have learned about the Orly Rivards of the world or the Brian McKeevers of the world because the Paralympics were separate and they got their own spotlight?
Yeah, this conversation has totally sealed I don't want to see the Paralympics and Olympics combined. I think people think about it as a good thing, but the more I think about it, it can't be good. And Josh, you are bang on when you know, you're just not going to know the athletes in the same way that you would. It's going to be a totally separate thing. It's to me, there's not a lot of good other than maybe a little bit cost effective, but it doesn't get to shine the stories, and Paralympians and Olympians deserve their own light and their own storytelling and their own situation. To combine it, I think would be a crime, really, when you think about it. And I don't like it anymore. I was kind of like, okay, maybe we do it. And now I'm like, no, I don't think much good can come out of that. So
I will say, I think there is a way you could do it, but you would basically have to make the Paralympics Olympics a month long, because then you've got, and then you're looking at twice as many venues for Athlete Village, for example, because you've got twice as much team potentially. But you could do it if you're willing to spread it out over a longer time frame. It's just most places will not do that, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
One day Olympic events, the next day Paralympic events, but then
or they can even be the same day, but just move the spotlight from one to the other.
Yeah, I'm not sure that TV
logistics
networks
would be hard.
Would be so excited to split the spotlight. I think it just should be where it is. I think step one for the winter is moving the date, let alone the idea of putting it all together. We need to see better winter conditions for our winter Paralympians, because they need to shine better in conditions that are more winter and not looking like summer, which we saw in the last Paralympic Games. Josh, you and I had this conversation offline, and we started to have this conversation, and we'll do this from time to time. I've done this with each and every one of you and some of you together, where it's like we're kind of having a conversation that we could have on the program, and this was one of them. And the conversation basically went like this. You were talking about some athletes that you were with at nationals in a car that were expressing some nerves for the day, and it got us to thinking about this conversation. Now, before I let you take over, I do just want to say that Austin sort of led this conversation. It's like he saw my script and said the level of competition at national championships for track and field is not where it could be or needs to be. He was actually very polite and honest about his 2 gold medals. From there, with all of that being put together, I'll let you kind of take over with what happened in the car and subsequently the events to follow.
Well, essentially what happened was I had conversations with 2 different athletes whose names I will leave out of things. And they both expressed to me that the size of the stage was affecting them. And that in the case of at least one, they felt physically ill until their first event. And they ramped themselves up over the fact that they were going to nationals and they were going to be up against all these people, and it was the biggest stage for them in their career. And maybe it's because I've not given myself enough credit, but I've never really experienced that, because to me, I'm going to nationals. I've trained, I've prepared, I'm as ready as I'm going to be, and whatever happens, happens. But for others, they get very much in their heads and very much focused on, I need to do well. If I don't do well, I'm wasting people's time. And if I'm not doing well, then I've done this and I've done this. And it just ends up spiraling on them. And so in both cases, I just tried to listen and just remind them that, number 1, you've practiced. Number 2, you've prepared. And number 3, your teammates will still be your teammates after the race. Your teammates will still be your teammates after you throw. They're not going anywhere. In the case of one conversation, I said to them, I'm still going to be your friend regardless of whether you win or lose. I promise you that. And I don't know if it helped, but I hope it did, because I understand that sometimes our heads get the better of us.
Claire, before I let you weigh in on this, I want to bring a little bit further context for myself, and I think all of us have been here in one way or another, but like, for me, when things started to get like that, where I was getting sick and I was feeling really anxious, I actually started to ask myself, what am I doing this for? Is this going too far where I can't eat, I can't prepare because I'm just feeling so anxious and so uptight? And it's like the fun of sport is leaving itself. And thus for me, it was like, maybe it's time to step away. Your reaction to what I said, to what Josh brought up, please have the floor.
That's exactly it. I think when you realize you've gotten to a point where it doesn't feel fun and it's not something that you are looking forward to or getting excited about, that's a pretty big indicator that it's time to check in, both with yourself, and I think I want to make it very clear that, and Austin talked about this as well in the interview, of just the importance of having access to a sports psych and having that part of your team behind you. It's such a crucial part of performance, and we can spend hours in the gym and feel prepared physically, but if something's not feeling right between the ears, nothing is going to feel 100% like you're ready. And it's a unique experience for new athletes, and it's kind of, you feel like deer in a headlights, kind of shock to the system when you get to those bigger events that do have bigger importance in your career, especially if you're trying to pursue a high performance career in any sport. And I can say for myself, man, Josh, I wish I had the brain that you do, because I have always been my worst critic. I've always been the hardest on me. And I think it does work, that it does matter and it does make an impact when people do reassure you that, hey, I'm not going anywhere, no matter the results. This should be fun. And yes, in the high performance world, it's results based. But at the end of the day, you have to be enjoying it. So I hope anyone out there listening that is currently tackling a athletic career is, if you don't have someone to talk to about it, that is going to make the biggest difference when you add that to your toolbox.
To the person, sorry, Josh, go ahead.
Sorry, Brock. I just wanted to sort of add, I think the pressure is different because for some of us, a national championship is the biggest stage. With all due respect to both of you, you've both been to a world championship. You've both been to a high level event, whereas I myself haven't been. And again, maybe that's why I jokingly say, well, maybe I didn't give myself enough credit, because I looked at it and said, I'm going to go into this and I'm probably going to place sixth. Who cares? So there's that aspect to it where this is the highest level you've gotten to or are going to get to. And I think I agree entirely with what Claire was saying about sports psychology. I think it's very important, and I think that it would do us as athletes well if we could have access to that resource at an earlier point in our careers, because I think some of this is self-sabotage, and I think some of it is someone seeing potential and as a result going, yeah, this is going to be easy, you're going to win this. And then they go, well, what if I don't? Are you still going to believe in me? So I think it falls on coaches to help their athletes prepare. And I think it falls on teammates at certain levels to be that sounding board for those teammates and say, it's okay. It's just a race. Sun's going to come up tomorrow. But I also remember a teammate a number of years ago who was an ambulatory thrower. And they went to their first national championship with me. And their event got mixed in with the able-bodied women's throws. And it was done out of a stadium in a park with a band playing and with crowds all around and with food and just hoopla, hoopla, hoopla. And they got completely overwhelmed and didn't perform the way they wanted and came out of there going, this is stupid. I don't want to do this again. I'm no good at this, and blah, blah, blah. And so we walked back to our hotel together. And as we walked, I flagged down a friend of mine who was a para-athlete and a wheelchair racer for Canada. And I said to her, hey, can you walk with us? I need help here. Like, I need to try and bring this person down because they're spiraling badly. And so I eventually hung back and I let the two of them talk. And this wheelchair racer I was able to connect this person with, I think was very helpful for them because they've had the experience and they've had the training to sort of help bring things in for that person. And they did go on to other meets and other national championships, but I can't help but wonder if they were negatively affected by that.
A few things I want to say here. I've been in that exact scenario that you just described, but we were prepared for it to a point. Because in bocce, if you roll into a gym, you may see 50 people. And normally they're connected with somebody in some form, coach, sport assistant, friend, uncle, aunt, whatever. There's some connection. When we went to the Paralympics in 2008 and I was 17 years old, we were told, hey, every day in your bocce venue and there, you're going to be in front of 5,000 people. And we went, yeah, okay, that's hilarious. Like you're being ridiculous when you say that. And they said, nope, we're not. And bocce was known as one of those quiet games and one of those games that you don't see a lot of noise. And so they pumped in crowd noise into our training, and they did all kinds of things to try to make us understand and feel what it was going to be like and all those things. And I'll tell you, it prepared us for that. But sometimes you can get caught in a situation where somebody can tell you a million times that this is going to happen, and you're just not ready for it. Even though they prepared us for it, we were like, is it really going to be 5,000 people? Yeah, it really was 5,000 people every day. And it was that way, and it wasn't that way until London in 2012 again. We had 2 events in the span of 12 years where we had over 5,000 people in our event. Second thing I'll say is that the difference between national championships and international events is that you don't have easy access to sports psychology without pulling out your pocketbook and saying, you can have this, but you've got to pay 120, 150, whatever it is, in order to make that happen. So there is a disconnect between the national level and the international level. They try to get you prepared, but there's just things that people have access to that we don't in certain scenarios. That's the second thing I'll say. And I'm going to give each of you a chance to go around and comment and close it out, and then we're done. The third thing I'll say is, Josh, how important it is for you to be able to step back and say to somebody, look, the sun's going to rise tomorrow and I'm still going to be your friend. I would like everybody to turn up their volume for 30 seconds when I say this. Even though it sounds ridiculous when somebody says somebody's not going to be my friend if I fail, that is a legitimate feeling that somebody can feel. I've been there. I've been there where it's like, if I fail at XYZ in sport, I'm not going to have a friend. I'm going to lose my teammate. They're going to lose faith in me. They're not going to trust me with this key shot. It is legitimate feeling. So for somebody in that world to step back and be big in their shoes and say, hey man, I'm still going to be your friend tomorrow, that is massive, 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 massive. So I want people to walk away from this conversation and realize what we go through may seem ridiculous as a conversation, but it is a serious, serious thing that happens, and people just need to know it and understand it. And that's why I wanted to bring up this conversation. I will open the floor to Claire, and then we'll swing over to Josh, and then we're done for this episode.
I don't think that people really realize how heavy that feels as well. I specifically can remember being asked to come out of retirement to go to World Championships. Hadn't played hockey or been in my sled for close to 5 months after retiring. And coming back and getting on the ice, I knew that I was going to be behind in where everyone else was in that training season. I knew that. That is a no-brainer. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it was really heavy because I didn't want to disappoint my teammates. Because when you are in a healthy sport environment, your teammates become family, and you want to show up for them in the best way that you can. And it helped a lot to have my teammates come up to me and check in and reassure me that, one, they asked me to come back because they wanted me there. Secondly, that I deserve to be there, and that they understand where I'm at and they still see value in me being a part of that group and trading towards that goal. So honestly, no one really realizes how much that can really impact someone of truly just checking in and reassuring a teammate that, hey, we want you here no matter what, no matter win, loss, no matter what, we ask you to be here because we want you here. So I'm so glad that we kind of ended up in this conversation because it's such an important one to have. And I know we've had many, many conversations about the importance of mental health and all the ways that you can build that and strengthen that in an athletic perspective. But to have someone that you care about just check in, sport or not, it matters and it makes a difference.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And that's, I think, why we all, as teammates, as coaches, as parents, need to take that responsibility. And just when we see someone who's kind of quiet, kind of off on their own, maybe not interacting, check in. Just say, hey, you all right? You're kind of quiet. Is everything okay? Are you trying to focus? Are you getting psyched up for your event? Like, what's going on? And I never want my teammates or my friends to feel like they have to talk to me, but I always want them to know that I'm here to listen, because ultimately, just knowing that you have someone who's willing to listen and isn't going to judge you is critical.
Yeah. It even goes beyond the field of play. And yes, I'm going to go outside of sports for like 30 seconds. I work a production of Family Feud Canada, and I'm working it right now as we record this. Every weekend is booked up from that. And we had an incident last weekend where somebody got injured. And I'm proud to say, as obvious as it was, that the production stopped until such point that person was taken care of. Yes, we're making TV. Yes, we're making programs. Yes, all of that is true. But the first thing that should be on the mind of people is the well-being of individuals' health, whether mental, physical, etc. And I remember that day I rolled upstairs and I was up on the 10th floor and I rolled past this individual because a lot of things were cryptic about what was going on, and we just knew there was a medical emergency. And I rolled past this individual who was in tears, had an ice pack, etc. And I radioed to my group and I was like, hey, is anyone attending to this? And they responded, yep, that's the medical emergency. It's all good. I could have just drove by and just done what I had to do and move on. But I think when you see something good, bad, or indifferent, you have to stop and say, where does my gut land on this? Where do I think I should be? Should I go and talk to Josh after he's had a good or bad hockey game? How well do I know him in order to do that? Should I go and talk to Claire after a good or bad game? How well do I know her? I know one of them better than the other, and I know where to stand on each of those. I'm going to ask the one I don't how I should approach the situation if there's a good or bad game, because I don't know. But it's all about checking in on everybody's well-being. So we hope that you've taken something from this episode. We're not going to delve into mainstream sports because it's just hard to move on from a conversation like this. It was deep and needed, I would say, but we hope you enjoyed it. And until we meet again next week, be safe and be well.